George Washington once said he would rather be on the farm than be an emperor to the world. My name is Enyunam and this is the Ghanaian Farmer. If this is your first time on my channel, please subscribe and share the link. Today, we are in the Volta region at Didome. We have been to the farm, a rice farm specifically. We started from where the dam is and went to the rice field itself, those who were harvesting and of course the ones that are yet to be harvested, to have a conversation around farming. But I am coming to have this part 2 simply because I'm inspired by the man who is into farming. Many would have chosen to be an emperor to the corporate world, to the suit and tie, than being in the hot sun and getting involved in getting their hands dirty and wearing boots. And that is the story of Mr. Fred Kukubo. He's worked in the corporate world, occupied big positions, received all the big salaries, but today he has chosen to be a farmer. Mr. Kukubo, thanks for joining me.
You're welcome.
Fred Kukubo, tell me about the starting of your life, where you were born, your primary school, what did you study, and what was your first job, and how did you end here?
Yeah, thank you, Enyulam. Well, I think my journey has been quite an adventurous one. I started from a very humble home. I grew up pretty much in farming community in the eastern region of Ghana, Suhum to be specific, and then grew from there to move to the city, to pursue my basic education. So, and then subsequently to the senior high level, to those days we call it senior secondary school, the SSS, and then moved from there to the university and got involved in the world of work, what we call the white collar job. So I would say I was privileged to have an accelerated career right after my first degree. So
what did you study in the university?
Yeah, so actually I'll start from SSS. I pursued agriculture. Okay. In fact, I'm someone who I think from childhood I naturally love agric. So growing up as a young boy, you will see me doing the backyard garden. Among all my siblings, I was the one who you would find doing backyard garden, and my friends who I grew up with actually know me for that. In Accra, we were living in Kanda Estates those days and time, and I'd always do backyard garden when the rains come. And so I had natural love and passion for agriculture for some reason or the other. So I read agric in senior secondary school and then pursued further to read agriculture again. General agriculture at University of Cape Coast. That was where I had my first degree. And then after my first degree from UCC, I started my career. So I had a privilege to work with quite prestigious international organizations, including Solidaridad West Africa. At the time, it was an EU-funded project called West Africa Fair Fruit. So for me, that's where it all started, where I was privileged to join the then NGO at the time. And they actually coached and, developed me. I had opportunity to work on different commodity value chain from the fruits and vegetable sector. Then those were the days we were doing some projects in fruit sector, specifically pineapple. There was a new variety of pineapple then called MD2 variety. And then the orange, the citrus sector. So, it gave me the opportunity to be exposed way earlier in my career. So I've seen it quite all, or most of it, if I should put it that way, through my development work from West Africa Fair Fruit to Solidaridad, Regional Expertise Center, and then Solidaridad West Africa. And I worked with them for, I think, nearly 10 years or so.
In which year are we talking about here?
So we are looking at from 2009, until I finally branched out to pursue my purpose-driven life or my passion in agribusiness. So the experience at Solidaridad or the development organization was really a great one. The exposure. I got opportunity to travel across the length and breadth of the country, working on different crops, from the fruits and vegetables to the tree crops like cocoa, oil palm, and the likes, and also not only in Ghana, but in West Africa, because that's what the regional office stands for. So in Cote d'Ivoire, Nigeria, Cameroon, I had opportunity to travel to Uganda, to some part of East Africa, and even in Asia and in Europe. So I had seen staffs in terms of agriculture and technology use as well.
In which year did you join Nestle?
Yes, so I think in 2017, I should think, I moved on from Solidaridad to join Nestle, where the Nestle, specifically the Nestle Central and West Africa region, their regional
Okay.
office.
Okay. As what? Which department were you working at?
So I was recruited, I joined them to manage what they call the Nestle Cocoa Plan. So I was then the Cocoa Plan manager for the for Nestle within the regional office, what we call
For
the
how long
CIWA.
did you work with them?
I worked with them for I think 2 years, so
Okay.
to speak. But prior to that, I had always had a passion to demonstrate, what I love to do, which is agriculture. Because
Okay.
working with the development sector, moving on to the multinationals, which also gave me a major, if you like, exposure. Because then I got to understand business development, I got to understand business intelligence, I got to understand the food sector or the food value chain. I mean, Nestle equally gave me quite some good exposure as well
All
to
right.
understand how the multinationals run their business.
Okay. So how long did you work with them as well?
With Nestle, you mean 2 years?
2 years.
Yes.
So was it after the 2 years you moved into full-time farming, or you were doing farming vis-a-vis working with them?
So I would say I zoomed in deeper right after I moved.
Okay.
But prior to that, I had been looking forward, to start this whole thing. So as in looking at where to start from, because I had a blend of commodity expertise.
Okay.
The tree crops, the veggies, the fruits, and then the cereals or the
Okay.
grains. So in fact, the cereals or the grains exposure also came from Nestle, I must
Okay.
say. So when I was ready to, or when I moved on, or I was ready to start my own agribusiness, it was really about where do you start from? In terms of which commodity value chain would really give you the value for money option. Tree crops normally takes quite some time, like 3 years possibly, before you begin realizing your return on investment,
Right.
profit, and all
Okay.
that.
Okay.
But I realized that the short-term crops are also equally a low-hanging fruit to catch up with.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, if I have the option between a short-term crop and a long-term crop, and as a business person, where would I start from? So obviously, I delved straight up into the short-term crops,
Okay.
and I decided to start with rice.
Right. With your experience from cereal, fruit, vegetables, and then tree crops
Yeah.
and cereals, why settled on rice? Because it seems you had a lot of love for cocoa. Why settled
Yeah.
on rice?
It's actually quite a surprise for most of my colleagues or my peers who have known me with my career. I'm more known as a cocoa expert,
Okay.
than rice. But as I said, it's all about business.
Okay.
I've had the exposure, the business intelligence, and I was looking forward to a low-hanging fruit. And in fact, I must also say that within Nestle, I also worked with a team. Whilst I was the cocoa plant manager, we also had a rice, or let me say cereal plant manager. We have the coffee plant manager. They have different, commodity leads. So we always meet together in a team and to discuss the comment. So within the value chain for me, I would say I had that, exposure to from there. Then I realized that, actually, it's not all about cocoa.
Okay.
As an agronomist, you could actually venture into a different commodity value chain once you have the fundamentals in terms of the technical know-how. So I picked up the rice because one, I knew, or from the exposure I had, I knew that it was a short-term crop.
Okay.
I also gathered that or realized that it's actually a major staple within our food consumption range. Every home, every restaurant,
Consumes
every
rice.
consumes rice. So if you are looking for an avenue where as far as agribusiness is concerned, then you pretty much want to look at the consumables. Which commodities can people do without? People cannot do without. And rice stands tall, including maize,
Right.
soya, and stuff like that. Yeah.
I see. Now, what also went into the location, because Volta region is not the only rice growing areas. We have
Sure.
the northern, we have eastern, Volta camps, we have the Salaga and a few other areas. So why Volta region? What has location also got to do with me deciding on
Yeah.
planting this specific?
Yes. So I did quite a number of scouting, a lot of scouting
Okay.
across the length and breadth of the country before coming into the value chain. My previous work with the development sector and in the corporate world exposed me to all the regions. So I'd then been to the north. I've understood the climatic condition, over there, and all that. So when I came to Volta, I realized that water wouldn't be a challenge. Access to water wouldn't be a challenge if it is rice I want to do. I felt that the climatic condition here is good. There are quite some good streams and rivers, especially the Volta River, which is almost at the length and breadth of the region, you know. So I realized that water wouldn't be a challenge, and I wanted to do an irrigation farming, irrigated farming, irrigation farming. And so that is what actually brought me to Volta Region. That is the first thing. The second thing too is that I felt that myself, I'm a Voltarian, you know, I had mastery or knowledge of the language. So my ability to articulate and communicate and understand the people I work with could also help, you know, and give me some level of control within, I mean, for my investment or the business. So that also informed my decisions to do Volta Region. I mean, to select Volta Region. And perhaps thirdly, I also observed that there were quite a number of rice schemes, irrigation schemes. I mean, from the Asuchari, the Bon irrigation project or scheme, to the Weta Avalavi irrigation scheme, to the Aveime irrigation scheme. I mean, I scouted all these places.
You are surrounded.
Exactly. So I realized that, okay, I'll not be the only, you know, person to do it, but I'm surrounded with other equally, you know, bigger farms that I could learn or leverage from their development.
From your experience with these international companies you've worked with, from understanding how these crops work, and of course, scouting for location and settling on rice, what other factors did you consider before actually, after you've leased your land, or before even leasing the land? What other factors are very, very key to me if I want to invest into farming?
So one, you need to look at the type of crop. You know, as I indicated earlier on, is it highly in demand? Sort of. I think one thing I left out was that the current regime, I mean government, really pushed the rice agenda forward. When they came to power, they made mention clearly that they are going to, you know, facilitate local production and consumption of rice. So for us, that is an avenue. It gives you some room for
you to explore.
Okay. We also check the numbers online. I mean, data online to look at the gap, importation gap of rice, and then as compared to local production. We realize the gap was huge. So if the current government is making effort to really close the gap, then it's quite a smart way to get into that gap and then have a market share. So we estimated that we would like to have at least some 1 or maximum 3% of the market share or the importation share. Can we close the import gap of nearly $2.5 million or so per year just by 1%, 1.5% or maximum 3% if we want to be overly ambitious? So that was a factor for us. So once that is cleared in terms of marketability, you know, and all that, the second thing we looked at was now the location, you know, as regarding where do you want to site this project to have value for money as well. And so we scouted, as I indicated earlier on, and then we identified this area, I mean the Mafia Didome area, because of access to water as well. And then of course, you would definitely require capital, you know, so we had a budget estimation of what amount of money we needed to start with. How do we mobilize those capital?
Looking at you look pretty young for me. Now, talking about capital, with the acres you have under your watch, it's about 500 acres plus. How much are we talking about averagely? How much?
Well, this is quite a tricky question. It depends on your, I would say it depends on your capacity. When I say capacity here specifically, I'm talking about, you can start from anywhere, let me put it that way. But if you are looking at, if you have a commercial drive, like some of us had, you know, then you would want to start from quite a sizable number of acres, maybe 20 acres minimum to start with, and then gradually you expand to 50 acres with time, you know, so that's how we started. So an acre, averagely, or at the moment, let me put it that way, you'll be needing between 3,000 to 4,000 Ghana cedis. Sorry, 3,000 to 5,000 Ghana cedis roughly, assuming without admitting that we are going to deploy some technology, you know, to make sure you have everything on point per acre to start with in terms of development of the field and all that, once you have had access to land. So if you now do the calculation, if an acre is costing you maximum 5,000 or minimum 3,000, then it gives you a fair idea how much 20 or 50 acres would cost you, you know, yeah.
Okay. How important is who you're going to sell to and who are buying or who need my produce before you even put seed on ground? How important is that? Because I am asking you these because I've encountered a lot of farmers, both in Ghana and abroad, who will call, and you know, my garden eggs is almost at harvest. How do I get markets?
Yeah.
From you and from what you know, how important is that for somebody who is yet to start? Do I need to know if Fred Kukubo and his family like rice before I even plant the rice? Or I can just plant and then I'll get buyers at the end of the day?
Yeah, so it depends on a lot of factors. But for me, or for our business, we did a bit of market survey.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, your level of experience or exposure also counts in every business you venture into the agricultural sector. So we did a bit of market survey. We knew that there was demand out there, there was market out there.
Okay.
Right from the raw material stage or the paddy rice, or for rice that has been harvested, or milled rice, you know, and then also the milled rice. So even in the paddy form, which is yet to be milled, there is demand or rush for it by the millers. So there are various, you know, actors within the value chain. We have the producers, we have the millers, and then we have the consumers or the off-takers or distributors or aggregators, whichever way you want to call them. So we ran a survey through them, you know, and also based on available data to us at the time. So we knew that once we produce, we were going to have access to market. But one thing we do for most of our production is that we would always connect with the buyers before we produce.
You always connect with them ahead of time?
Yes. We tell them, like, look, this year we are going to do some 100 acres, or this season we are going to do some 100 acres, or some 200 acres. So will you be willing and ready to procure or to buy from? Yeah, and they're like, yeah. So at least we always have about 3 or 2 minimum off-takers
on standby.
Who can pick all the rice. As we are harvesting right now, there is demand, there is rush demand. We virtually have to select who to sell to.
So in a nutshell, it's very important I identify my buyers before I even start planting.
Before you start planting. That's what normally I call as backward integration. You know, you need to identify your market. Don't assume the market is there, even if the demand is there. Because it is until you have worked on your market that you can take that risk. But until then, it is advisable that you secure a certain percentage of the market. Before
you didn't hear
production. Okay. So we have never struggled to sell rice. In fact, especially right from the field. Once we harvest, the buyers are on standby. As we speak, or we are harvesting, the trucks are coming to load them off to the off-taker. Whilst
we're having a conversation, you mentioned the use of technology and mechanization. Now, in Ghana, almost about 60% and above are peasant farmers, and the little number is mechanized and commercial, if I should say. For those who are yet to venture into farming, what is your take? Do I target the normal little 1-2 acre, or if I'm looking forward to making proper, you know, money, I should target commercial?
I'll say it straight up. Commercialization drives markets and investments. You see, we are unable to meet our food needs or requirements as a country, or the food basket of the country, largely because of our smallholder nature system. Okay, but commercialization is the way to go for me. If you really want to mean business as a country, or you want to mean business as an agribusiness company, you need to strive towards excellence, towards commercialization. So for me, anyone who is coming into the sector, I give them the various parameters or the indicators. Strive to deploy technology. Do well to deploy mechanization. Do well to produce at scale. depending on the crop you are producing, once the market is there or you secure the market. But if you come on board and you are doing it the old way, I call it the old way because for me, they are old school systems,
Right.
and which hasn't proven to, be worth it in terms of investment of money, time and energy. Agriculture is really energy driving, I mean, the time you put in, the strength, the resources, capacity you have to put in. So for me, once you kick off, you need to kick off with the right mindset. Business, farm as a business, by way of commercialization. For me, that is the way to go.
Okay. It's been 3 years already.
Yeah.
You've
All too soon.
invested huge money into this project. Are you already getting your profit, or you are still gradually on the verge of getting? Which is which? How patient should I be when I invest into farming?
Farming requires a lot of patience and also excellence and discipline. If you are not patient enough, you will not realize your return on investment.
But I want my money. What
You
are
will
you
get
saying?
your money. You see, it's like I'll call it, it's like a normal curve. So we have the y-axis and then the x-axis.
Okay.
It peaks from the bottom like this, and it takes. So let's say you have your years on the y-axis, you have your revenue stream on the x-axis, or whichever axis you want to put it. So year one, you project that, okay, I'm expecting to cover this cost of production, and also cover this kind of revenue. Year two, so you need to come out actually with your projections, financial projections. So for us as a business, we actually came out, or we designed a 5-year financial projection.
5 years.
Exactly, which clearly gave us at which point we would be breaking even as we expand along.
Okay.
So we have all those projections in there, validated by a qualified, accountant or certified auditor, sort of, to help us to properly project.
Hey, small farming where they bring accountant and auditor inside.
This you outsource.
No.
That is the business we are talking about. You outsource.
Okay.
And for me, that's what I'm saying is the exposure. What I've seen over the years, from my development work till now, is that many smallholder farmers lack the proper record systems in place. They don't put it in place. Are you getting it? They make so much assumptions. You don't challenge your assumptions. But let me also quickly add that the fact that you may have done your financial projections or budgeting does not necessarily mean that on the ground,
that's how it's going to be.
It's going to be.
That's the reality we talked about.
Exactly. So it is the ground factor that helps you to modify your financial projections, add and drop, lower your expectations. I mean, muzzle up to face even more challenges and see how best you can close the gaps. You get it? So for me, or as a business, we are in our 3rd year. I would say the curve is now peaking. We are at the peaking stage after 3 years of rigorous drudgery in the production. It's, for me, it's like a war field.
Right.
I mean, there are so many, things you'd come across, battles you need to fight. Here, human resource management, financial management, closing gaps to avoid theft, reducing disaster here and there, how to mobilize funds. These are all hurdles you need to cross.
Right.
You get it? So you can't already assume that from year one or the first cycle, I'm making a big time. No. You need to give yourself, moderate your expectations, give yourself certain projections. Would I want to be peaking in the first 3 years, and then the 5th year? So we projected that by year 3, which is this year, the graph should be peaking.
Okay.
Which we are seeing, we are observing it gradually.
Okay.
So we are getting there. But I'll tell you that personally, I have not regretted.
Okay.
I'm really fulfilled. I mean, it's challenging, but trust me, it's also fulfilling for me. Because rigorous drudgery in the production, it's, for me, it's like a war field.
Right.
I mean, there are so many, things you'd come across, battles you need to fight. Here, human resource management, financial management, closing gaps to avoid theft, reducing disaster here and there, how to mobilize funds. These are all hurdles you need to cross.
Right.
You get it? So you can't already assume that from year one or the first cycle, I'm making a big time. No. You need to give yourself, moderate your expectations, give yourself certain projections. Would I want to be peaking in the first 3 years, and then the fifth year? So we projected that by year 3, which is this year, the graph should be peaking, which we are seeing, we are observing it gradually. So we are getting there. But I'll tell you that personally, I have not regretted. I'm really fulfilled. I mean, it's challenging, but trust me, it's also fulfilling for me. Because the excitement you get to see your business grow is completely different from a salary that will hit your account at the end of the month, if you know what I mean to say. Yeah.
Now, there's this thing about record. You keep mentioning record and then this and that. Record keeping is one of the things I've come across in all my errands or my movement around the region. How do you go about record keeping? What process or system do you employ when it comes to record keeping?
Yeah, so already you need to have an organizational structure. You need to have a clear-cut organizational structure of your business. You get it, like the human resource requirement you need. Okay, I'll need a farm manager or a technical supervisor who understands the system. You need an office administrator to be capturing records. So you already come out with a general or with a basic record keeping books. The receipts books, the invoices, the how do you call it? The invoices and all that. So whatever, and then of course, where possible, you can engage how do you call it, an accountant on yearly basis, not full time, to go through your books.
So part time, he comes to check the books
exactly,
and then he goes
back. That kind of that's what we have been doing. So we make sure we try as much as possible to capture every detail. So whatever expenses we are making, even payment receivables that rice we supply goes through our accounts. So almost every transaction we do either goes through our accounts or our mobile money account, bank account, or our Momo account, which is officially registered in the name of the company. So we're able to track all these expenses, and then the accountant comes in to manage the record. So we put in place an internal management system which is able to track all these records. Of course, there are some expenses you do which comes with cash.
Yeah.
So you need to have your petty cash book. So the administrator, one of the workers on site, he keeps those records. So okay, they had an interest of, let's say, 1,000 cedis for the week. Okay, maybe this went into food, this went into some utilities, this went into fuel. It's recorded.
Okay.
And then where there are no receipts, we have an honor certificate, we call it, so which certifies that this expenses has been made and is put on file.
Okay.
So when an accountant comes at the end of the year, all he comes to do is to now we make available all these documents or receipts, and then he does his job.
How many tons do you harvest during each production? After each production, after maturity, how many tons do you harvest?
So I'll start from our average yield.
Yeah, so year one, or you might not be able to remember.
No, I can clearly give you those numbers, but if you are looking at average year one, the first year we started with just about 50 acres.
Okay.
But our average yield per acre since we started has been between 1.8 to 2 tons per acre.
Okay.
And now we are recording in some fields 2.3, 2.5 tons per acre, which is quite good.
Okay.
So it means that averagely we are doing about 5 tons per hectare. If you do the conversion rate, about 5 tons per hectare, which suggests that we are doing like 2 tons per acre. So if you are doing 100 acres production, then indirectly or technically you are looking at some 200 tons.
Okay. All right. Now, have you experienced post-harvest loss yet, either through fire, through flood, or I even see some cattle, you were battling it with the cattle herdsmen. Hey, Mufafa. Have you ever experienced any of these challenges, and how do you day on day try to check the system to reduce, not entirely remove them, but reduce them to the minimum level?
Yeah, so there have been occasional challenges, or let me say natural disasters, but I think it's just been 1 or 2.
Okay.
And that was flooding. I think the recent major rainy season, we experienced some bit of flooding at the tail end of our fields.
Okay.
simply because we had constructed embankments at the edge of the farm to prevent, excess water or drainage, flood water from entering the field. So I think the flood was heavy, and that side is a natural valley. Okay, that flood water even all the way from Ho, Daklu area passes. So if you look at Google Earth or Google Map, you see all those stuffs there.
Okay.
So there was so much heavy rain, and also the dam was overflowing.
Okay.
There was spillage. So it means that the force of the flood was heavy. So it hit one arm of the embankment and it broke. And that was what sent water into those portions. So we lost nearly 20 acres of our fields to flooding.
That's a lot, ne?
Yeah. So
20.
Yeah. So sometimes you do experience some of these, challenges, which is for me is a natural disaster. But again, if you put your field development in good shape, sometimes you can avoid it.
How many workers do you have?
Yeah. So we have 7 permanent workers at the moment, and then the rest are all casuals.
How do you relate with your workers? Do you have that bossy attitude to, you are my worker, so? Because I saw you relating friendly.
Exactly. I mean, you were on the field with me. You saw how I relate. I relate with them as brothers and sisters, There's nothing really bossy for me with them, because for me, they are my field marshals. I mean, they are my if we were at war, then they are my soldiers, So pretty much I mingle with them. I mean, during lunch, I sit with them on the floor. We eat, we crack jokes. And then through that conversations, they're able to also channel their needs. Okay, boss Charlie, it's about time you do something more, that kind of thing. So we discuss all these things. So I relate very well with them. I make sure that they are well excited. So the permanent workers, I have them on my payroll. Most of them are on they are bankable.
Okay.
We pay their salaries through their bank account.
Okay, I was about to ask, is it cash on table or through the bank?
No, through the banks,
Okay.
largely. Except I think 2 of them who do not have bank accounts, which we are encouraging them. They joined us not so long ago.
How is your wife and kids taking this? Your family? I mean, you're wearing suit. Hey, that's my husband. He's working at Nestle. Then that's my husband. He's a farmer. How are they taking this?
I think that over the years they've been used to it. I mean, when I was in the corporate world and then the donor sector, I was always on the field. I was always trekking, because we had projects I need to go and monitor. I had projects I need to go and supervise and pick data. So more or less, for my wife in particular, she's quite used to it. She's been very supportive, I must say. And so, I mean, this is home. This is business. So they give me the blessing, the go ahead. So sometimes I come, I stay here for like a week or 2, and then I go back. When there is not much work, I stay with the family. I think I'm having really quality time with the family now.
Does farming pays? There are a lot of young people. That's my last question.
Does farming pays? There are a lot of young people. That's my last question for you, because my cameraman is pestering me. Does farming pay? There are a lot of graduates out there. I'm sure you've heard of the
Yes.
Graduate Unemployed Association. Now, does it pay? Is it worth pursuing? What do you have to say to this?
I would say if you do it well, if you have all your arsenals in place, you would enjoy the fruit of your labor. It is quite a challenging sector, especially in this sub-region, where there are a lot of challenges confronting farming, access to finance, access to market, access to land, including inputs. But again, if you plan well and you give yourself time, you probably would have value for money. So for me, I would say yes, so to speak, because I knew exactly what I was up to. And I always advise people who want to get into the sector that you cannot be an absentee farmer and expect to win. You would burn your fingers, you would lose. The success of every agribusiness or farm enterprise is your footprint. Nothing more, nothing less. Anything less than that, forget it. You would lose. So it's either you are in the game for real, or you'll be they say we should be a citizen and not a spectator. Or you'll be a spectator.
I know, right?
That's spectators.
About
I know, right? Now, there's this debate about if government want young people to go into the sector. They should structure it like you're saying, access to credit, access to land, mechanized, and all that. Should we be looking at government to fix the sector before we go in there, or we should actually take our boots and actually go in the field and fix it, make
The
it look
debate
the
should
way
be,
we
for
want
me,
it to
government
be?
has its role
What
to
should be
play.
the
I think
debate?
that they are two separate things. Government has its role to play. Government, I've said it somewhere and I had issues. Government has no business doing business. But government can create the enabling environment. Okay? I mean, what are the enablers?
Right.
If it is about inputs, government can use its clouds to make sure that the inputs are available, especially if it has to be imported and if we are not locally manufacturing most of these inputs or equipment that we need. Are you getting it? As an investor or entrepreneur, I shouldn't struggle to be importing equipment. Okay, so the government is doing it, but so government should create the enablers, make available input for farmers to access. You know, that is what I mean by government can create enabling environment as well. And then when it comes to access to land, especially for those of us who are looking at commercial farming, you know, government can equally create that opportunity by engaging traditional authorities. I mean, landowners, you know, government agricultural land banks, for instance, can be demarcated for purposes of commercial farming. I think the government of the day is making some effort, or I must give them the credit, because I know there are some developed lands at the Astuary area or the West Bank area that you can actually go into, you know, invest in. So these are the staffs. And then it is the private sector or the entrepreneurs, you know, who would now have to take that opportunity or that advantage to step in, or the investors to step in. Leveraging on these enablers, as I spoke about. And the third arm is now the financial institutions, where for me, I think there is a huge or big gap. I feel that the financial sector really haven't come to terms with the agricultural sector. Trust
Yet?
me. Some
You're
banks,
sure?
yeah, I tell you.
We have a bank that says
You don't want to go there, because in fact some banks have agricultural desks, but they are not really agricultural desks. They are trade desks. Because the parameters or the criteria they use for trade cannot be used for agriculture. I mean, trade is simple, so to speak. If you are helping me as a bank to give me credit to go and procure to buy some items from China, import, it's that simple. Are you getting it? But if you are coming to the agricultural sector, you cannot use the same criteria or parameters for the agricultural sector. So they ought to get a deeper understanding of how it works here.
So you want to say, as we stand, they don't understand the operations or the activities of farmers?
I think largely they haven't fallen in love with the agricultural sector. They would rather invest or give credit elsewhere than agriculture. And that is pretty much, in practice, that is what is happening. You know, do a check on all the commercial banks. What is their the portfolio for agriculture in terms of credit facility?
You mean if we investigate, a lot of people will not?
I have tried it and it hasn't worked for me. It's not about not having the records in place.
You have everything that it takes to assess
in fact,
funding.
I was asked to go and do valuation. I brought in valuators at my cost. Me coming to search for funds, go and do valuation at my cost and everything. At the end of the day, it's like, Charlie, the effort is...
You know what? I know a farmer. Now it's the bank director that drives to his farm to say, please, come and take the money.
Yeah, you know.
That time would come.
Yeah. So they want the already established, like after you have done all the sweats, and then they'll call you, oh, your accounts, you are not loading it. When are you loading? As though they gave you the money to.
All right, so that's the CEO of Farmer Global, Agribusiness and more. His name is Fred Kokobo. I would have done 1 hour easy like that if my cameraman would not be frowning his face. But you know what? I think this is pretty much a very insightful conversation we just had, and that should help you, put you in check. Agriculture is no kidding. It is business. There is nothing like absentee farmer. Be there, invest, get involved, be patient, and you get the result. That's how it's as simple like that. You have to follow the system and pay your dues. It would equally pay you back. My name is Enyonam, and this is the Ghanaian Farmer. This is just the part 2. Part 3 will come. Today, let me go to Accra. I'm hungry. But if you are there and you're watching us, okay? If you're watching us and you want to support this production, we have a lot of things we need for this production, like laptops, more sophisticated cameras, we need drones, we need pickups, we need a lot of things to actually help give you the quality insightful production you need. Please come to our aid. You can contact us on 0554-830431. I'm all over on social media, the Ghanaian Farmer or Enyona Manya. Until then, thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you.